Good morning, children. I know you all are very anxious about your board exams, and that's very natural for you. Especially for English, the anxiety is more because we tend to, procrastinate, thinking, ho jayega, dekh lenge. English is all about, stories and all. Okay. But doesn't matter. Um, there's still time. You still have enough time to prepare well and score well for your board exams. And I'm here to help you with it. So I'll give you a few tips and a few strategies so that you can excel in your board exam. See the question paper design. You have your written exam for 80 marks, and I'm sure you must have completed your internal assessment where assessment of listening and speaking is tested, and you must have completed your project work and viva. So now we are basically going to deal with these 80 marks, where your 80 marks are divided into three sections: reading skills, creative writing skills, and literature. So your reading section carries 22 marks, creative writing carries 18 marks, and literature carries 40 marks. As you can see, literature has the maximum weightage. It is 50% of the entire paper. Therefore, it's necessary that you are thorough with literature because it consists of the 50% paper. Okay. So now how do we go about reading? Let's begin with section A, reading. When you get the question paper in your hand, you will have 15 minutes reading time. So my suggestion to students is do not go through the entire paper because it is not required. Eventually, you will go through the paper, you'll be familiar with the other questions, and it's not going to make any difference if you know the questions beforehand. So you can, actually add those 15 minutes and very judiciously make it a part of your reading section. So you get extra 15 minutes. So concentrate only on question number 1, which carries 12 marks, right? Now, how do you go about answering comprehension? So skim through the passage to get a general idea about the content. Okay, just a minute, ma'am. So you skim through the passage, just browse it once, don't go into details. So once you have read the passage, you will get an idea about the passage, about the topic, what is the main idea of the passage. After that, read the questions. So I'm telling you to follow a reverse order, but then this works. This works well with our children, and therefore I suggest you read the questions. So when you read the questions, you realize that you had read something like this while you were browsing, and therefore it makes it easy to locate specific information. And now, after you read the questions, go back to the passage again and go on finding out the answers. For vocabulary questions, you need to puzzle out the meanings from the context because you may not be familiar with all the new words mentioned in the passage. For multiple choice questions, go by elimination. And there are 2-mark questions also, children. I think you must be aware. So if you're unsure of the exact answer, you can directly pick from the passage. It is a wrong notion that if you directly pick from the passage, you don't get marks and all. But as examiners, when the child has picked up the relevant content from the passage and written it, the examiner has to presume that the child has understood the question. Okay. So you can directly pick it up from the passage. That indicates that you know the correct answer. Okay. So whether it's in direct speech or indirect speech, whatever it is, you don't have to bother about changing tenses and all. You just directly pick up the extract or the few lines from the passage where you feel the answer lies. Okay. So these are some of the tips for your writing section. Okay. So read the questions, go back to the passage, again the second question, then go back to the passage. And vocabulary questions I've already told you, and the 2-mark questions you can pick directly. Now comes the creative writing part. Now my suggestion is, after you complete your reading, It should not take more than 30 minutes. You need to switch over to the writing section. These tips I'll give you at the end. But since we are dealing with the question paper design, we will go section wise. Okay. So your creative writing section carries 18 marks, where you have short tasks and you have long tasks. Children, please remember that you need to follow the order. Do not alter the sequence. Answer the paper as per the question number. Okay. So your first question in your creative writing is notice writing, where it is possible to score full marks. Please do not leave any scope for any deduction over here, because even in creative writing, it is possible to score 18 out of 18. So let us begin with notice writing. This is the format. These are the rubrics. Format carries 1 mark, content carries 2 marks, accuracy carries 1 mark. Now, one thing you'll observe here is there are no special marks for creativity, though the section is titled creative writing. Okay. So what is very important here is content. Whether it is creative writing or it is literature, your content plays a great role. So notice format, I hope you all know the format, the name of the organization, the word notice, the date, and the signing off. Okay. The designation and the full name that is provided. So if you write everything and you have to remember to draw a box with a pencil, then you get full marks for format. Now, under content, you have to ensure that you answer all WH questions. Okay. So what is the notice for? Whom is it for? Why? When? Where? Okay. So you have to include the date, time, and venue. Please remember, these are the important value points which the examiner will consider while evaluating your question. So answer all WH questions, and for any notice, date, place, time are very important. So and end the notice with, for more details, contact the undersigned, because if this is not written, then marks are deducted. So this is about notice. And if you answer everything correctly, then for accuracy, accuracy is your spellings and grammar. Generally for short writing tasks, marks are not deducted for accuracy because hardly any errors are made. And even if there are 1 or 2 errors, they are ignored by the board examiners. In school, we do not ignore, but at the board exam level, 1 or 2 errors are ignored, and generally children end up scoring 4 out of 4. Then the next question is invitations and replies. The same rubrics are followed here also. Format 1, content 2, accuracy 1. Again, you can see there are no marks for creativity over here. Content plays a major role. Now you will have a choice either between 2 invitations or 2 replies, or 1 invitation and 1 reply, etc. Okay. Now, most of the times children commit errors here when they opt for invitation. So here choosing wisely is also very important. My suggestion is always choose a reply, because you need to write only 2 sentences for a reply. The first sentence that you write for the reply is, thank you for the invitation to whichever event you have been invited for. As per the question, mention all the details. Thank you. Suppose you have been invited as the chief guest for a debate competition. So you will write, thank you for the invitation as the chief guest for the debate competition to be held on 5th November, etc. Date, place, time. And I shall certainly be there to witness the event, or I regret I shall not be able to attend the event due to a prior commitment. So children, these things can be memorized. As an English teacher, I should not be talking about rote learning, because English is not about rote learning. But then since our goal is to score well, these are certain things that I'm going to tell you, okay, which are generally not in accordance with language. So you can memorize certain things like this, the reply part, where you have to write only 2 sentences and you get full marks, because there is no scope for any error in content. If the content is correct, then children, you automatically get marks for accuracy, unless you don't know English at all. And even if you have made errors, remember, you cannot get 0 for accuracy. That is not allowed. The examiner is not allowed to give 0 for accuracy if the content is correct and you score full 2 marks for content. Now, the format, if there is any confusion about the format, at least half a mark is given for whichever format you have followed. You may not be confident whether it is a formal invitation letter or a card format, and you may mess up. So generally children cancel everything and then write a formal letter, then they cancel everything. No, it's a card format, then they write a card format. So do not do all this and waste time, because maximum you will be losing only half a mark for the format. You cannot again get 0 for the format here and accuracy. So remember, content plays a very important role for invitations and replies also. And remember my suggestion, go for the reply because you just need to write 2 sentences. Okay. Now, whenever you are writing an invitation, your invitation should end with kindly confirm your presence. Okay. Or if you are declining the invitation, then please mention regret or whatever, acceptance or declining, whatever is relevant to the question. Okay. And mention the reason that is provided in the question paper. You cannot write things on your own that my friend's mother met with an accident and therefore I had to be with her and all. We cannot write those kinds of things, because the more we write, the more errors we will make. Okay. And we cannot afford to lose any marks for this. So whichever reason is provided in the question paper, mention the reason. I cannot accept the invitation because of this. If there is no reason mentioned, then just write due to a prior commitment. Okay. I hope this is fine. Let's move on to the long writing tasks now. Now, there are 2 tasks. One is letter writing and the next is article and report writing. Now here you will get a choice between letter to the editor and job application. Okay. Now letter to the editor, you must have written letter to the editor since class 7, 8, I think. So you are all well versed with how to write a letter to the editor. But still, I would suggest you go for a job application, because you can memorize everything. And therefore, there are no, chances of committing any mistakes here. So I don't know what your teachers have told you, but this is what I always ask my students to do, because it takes just 10 minutes if they have memorized those things, the headings of the CV and the application. So it becomes very easy. But if you are opting for a letter to the editor, then you must follow the formal letter format with sender's address, date, the editor and the name of the newspaper. Generally, the common errors committed by children are when the question mentions that write a letter to the editor of a national daily. Children end up writing national daily instead of writing the name of the newspaper. So when you're writing a letter to the editor, the addressee is the editor, and after that, you need to mention whether it's the Times of India or the Hindu or whichever newspaper. If it's a local daily, then any local daily published in your city. Okay. Then the subject. After you write the subject, please begin it with, through the columns of your esteemed newspaper, I would like to draw the attention of the concerned towards, and whichever problem has been asked, mention this. Okay. Again, this requires rote learning, and if you have memorized it, nothing will go wrong. And if you begin like this, the examiner gets an impression that you are thorough with things, because here, again, if you're able to see my screen, the rubrics are format 1, content 2, organization 1, and accuracy of spelling and grammar 1. There are no marks for creativity again. Okay, this is really ironic. But since these are the rubrics, we have to, tackle the question in accordance to this. So when you begin your letter like this, through the columns of your esteemed newspaper and all, it will impress the examiner. The examiner will understand that you know things very well. You know the formats and all correctly. After you begin, this is your beginning line. After this, you mention the reasons or causes for the problem. Suppose you have been asked to write a letter to the editor about road safety, then when you will write towards rising number of accidents in our city, or write towards road safety. Okay, concern to draw the attention of the concern towards road safety. After that, mention the reasons or causes why accidents are caused. And please mention just two reasons, two or three reasons at the most. So reasons for accidents: not following traffic rules, jumping signals, speaking on the phone while driving, drinking and driving, etc., etc. So you can mention two, three reasons. What is the impact of these accidents? So loss of life, and some people may be handicapped for life. Okay, some of them may lose life. So these are the only consequences. And whether mentioned or not in the question, please provide suggestions that strict penalty should be levied on these and their license should be disqualified and all. So mention at least one or two suggestions and end the letter with, I shall be grateful if my views are found worthy of being published. Please do not write, I hope you will take some necessary action, because that is not the editor's job. Again, this is a common mistake committed by students. They expect the editor to take action. Okay. So the job of the editor is only to print the letter or your concern in the newspaper. So therefore, end it like this: I shall be grateful if my views are found worthy. And if you mention all this in this particular sequence. Now, what is content? Content is your beginning, your end, reasons, consequences, and suggestions. So this is your content. If you have, now how will the marking take place? Now, if you have written all this, the examiner has to write on the right hand side of the answer sheet. The examiner has to write, first of all, the examiner will give marks for format. If you have followed the correct format, sender's address, date, addressee and all, subject, then format 1. Content, the examiner will write content and will check whether you have mentioned reasons, impact, suggestions, etc. Content 2. Now, what is organization? Organization is whether you have begun properly and whether you have followed a proper sequence. So you have to mention the reasons. Remember, this is the sequence. First the reasons, then the impact, and then suggestions. If you jumble up this order, then your marks will be deducted. For organization, again, only half a mark, not more than that. Nobody can give 0 for organization. And then, depending on the number of errors of spelling and grammar that you've committed, your marks will be deducted from accuracy. And generally, only half a mark is deducted. So, out of 5, you are sure of content 2, format 1, organization half, and accuracy half. Still, you end up getting 4 out of 5, which is very easy. So, you can easily score 4 on 5. Okay, even if you commit certain errors. And if you follow this sequence, then organization, definitely you will get full marks, and you may lose marks only on account of accuracy. That too only half a mark, because nobody can give you 0 for accuracy here. Okay. So children, it's very easy to score 4, 4.5 out of 5 in the long writing tasks also. And I'm sure in school you must not have scored these many marks. And even my students have never been able to score, because I find various ways to deduct marks. Okay. Now this is the job application. Okay. My suggestion was to opt for the job application, though it is lengthy, because you can memorize it. And the moment you see the question, you attempt it. But then there are certain exceptions here. You cannot follow it to the letter, because last year in the board exam, we had trained our children for the job application, and we asked them to practice in front of us, asked them to memorize, and we had revised with them. And also they were very thorough, very confident about job application. So when after the exam they came out, they told us that they attempted the job application, whereas the letter to the editor was very, very easy, because some input was also provided to them. Okay. So if input is provided to you, that means you're given some points, include these points in your letter, then I think that becomes very easy. Then you don't need to recall from memory the job application, right? But if the topic is difficult and you're not familiar with the topic, then you will lose time in thinking what to write, how to begin, what are the reasons, what is the impact, what are the suggestions, etc. So it wastes your time. And here it's a race against time in your English paper because it's very lengthy. So that is why we ask the children to opt for a job application, because in a letter of application, again, it is divided into 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph is the reference, that this is with reference to your advertisement in the Times of India for the vacancy for the post of an accountant, and I would like to submit my candidature for the same. You can memorize this. This is a standard introductory paragraph. Okay. Then in the second paragraph, you have to mention a brief introduction of yourself, which again, you already know things about yourself, that I am a commerce graduate, I'm a commerce postgraduate. And then you mention certain skills over there and mention that I have an experience of 1 year. Then your final paragraph will again be the same, that I have attached my certificates and references, etc. And I hope my qualifications meet your requirements and that you will grant me a personal interview. So you can memorize these things. Okay. The only thing that will change in a job application is the post and the qualification depending on the post. So it's just like fill in the blanks, If you memorize this and just fill in the blank with whatever is asked in the question, it becomes very easy. Now here, whether it is mentioned in the question paper or not, you have to prepare a biodata or CV. CV is curriculum vitae or resume. Do not get confused. They are the same. Biodata is equal to resume is equal to curriculum vitae or CV. Now, whether or not they ask in the question paper, you are expected to write the covering letter first, which is called the application, job application, and then prepare a resume. Okay. Now, when you prepare your resume, you are expected to mention these 4 things: your personal details like name, address, phone number, email ID, date of birth. Okay. So these things already know about yourselves. Then qualifications, if you're applying for the post of an accountant, then you should know you should be a BCom, MCom, and your skills, you should know Tally, you should be well versed with Tally, etc. Okay. Then your experience, 1 year experience, you can invent any company, name of the company, okay? And references. So please do not miss out references, because references are very important. The employer, whenever you apply for a job, a background check is made about you, and the references that you mention, they are contacted. You cannot have your family and friends as your references. So when you mention your reference, the first reference should be your previous employer. So you will write, if you are an accountant, you will write the manager of XYZ company, okay, where you've written 1 year experience at, suppose, Solar Industries. So your reference one will be Mr. Gupta, manager, Solar Industries. The second reference will be your college principal, okay, from where you have graduated. So remember this, you cannot write references, mention references as from your family and among your family and friends. Again, all these can be memorized, all these headings, all the personal details, qualifications, skills, experience, hobbies and interests, languages known. So all these are points, which we don't have to think about, because we know our hobbies, we know which languages we know. The only thing that is required is qualification. Reference also you can memorize and keep. As I told you, the first reference is your previous employer and the second reference is your college principal from where you've graduated, etc. Okay. So that is why I strongly suggest opting for a job application instead of a letter to the editor. Okay. Next. The next question again is a long writing task, and there is a choice between article writing and report writing. Now, again, everybody is not well versed with, what's going on around them, abreast with the latest things happening in our country, in the world, etc. And article writing is, very unpredictable. You don't know what the topic will be. So again, you will waste a lot of time thinking if you opt for this question, okay, on article writing. So the format of article writing is headline and byline. You have to introduce the topic. You have to draw the reader's attention using anecdotes, startling facts, statistics, rhetorical questions, quotations, etc. But even if you do not use these facts, questions, etc., it's fine, because again, there are no marks for creativity here. As you can see, the most important thing here again is content. Okay. After that, you will write again your body paragraph will contain various aspects of the topic like merits, demerits, causes, consequences, effects, etc., etc., and conclusion, how you conclude your article. But remember that whenever you conclude your article, it has to be a hope, a warning, etc. Okay. And it has to end on an optimistic note, right? So again, for the organization of an article, remember these 4 points. Introduce the topic, mention the reasons, mention the consequences, mention suggestions if required. Okay. And end the article on a positive, futuristic note. Okay. But my suggestion is opt for report writing, because in a report, you simply have to describe what has taken place. You have to describe an event that has already taken place, and we experience so many events in our life that it's very easy to, recall and write. Again, there is a checklist which I will be providing. So if you are thorough with the checklist for report writing, then nothing can go wrong. Okay. So article writing, once again, the headline and byline is the format. So if you have written the headline, children, whichever name is given in the question paper, mention only that as the byline. Don't write your own name over there. This is again a common error that is committed by the children. After that, 4 things: introduction, consequences or reasons, consequences, suggestions, and end on a positive futuristic note. Okay. Then report writing. I would suggest you go for this, because you will get reports either on events like a blood donation camp or a tree plantation drive or your annual day, sports day, things like that, or a workshop or a seminar held in your school, or accident reports. Okay. Accident reports include road accidents, rail accidents, and natural calamities like earthquakes, etc., even fire accidents. Okay. Political incidents are not asked, though I have mentioned it over here. I have never seen so far this any political incident being asked in the exam. Okay. So again, the format, headline and byline for a magazine report. But if you're asked to write a newspaper report, the only additional thing you have to write is place and date where the event took place. Okay. The headline and the byline will remain, whether it's a newspaper report or it's a magazine report. But if it is a newspaper report, then the date and place needs to be mentioned. Okay. Now, what is the checklist? What should you remember? And the checklist that I have given you are nothing but the value points of the marking scheme of the board exam. Okay. So your reports can be about incidents, including accidents, calamities, etc., events, sports day, book fair, exhibitions, inaugurations, visits of celebrities, celebrating library day, yoga day, anything related to students. Okay. Now, if you are writing an accident report, now if you again memorize this checklist and write one sentence on each of these 11 points that I have mentioned, the chances of losing marks is 0. You have mentioned everything, and therefore again, the marks for content will be full. Format, if you've written the headline and the byline, you will get full marks for format. Organization, if you follow a proper sequence, the sequence I'm going to tell you now. And accuracy of spelling and grammar, as I've told you, you will score at least half out of 1. Okay. So I hope you understand how easy it is to score only if you know certain things thoroughly. Okay. So any report will include what happened, when, where. So your first paragraph of the report will be Answers to all WH questions. What happened? A road accident took place. There was an accident between a school bus and a truck. Okay, then where? Mention the locality. When? On this particular date, at this particular time. How? How did it happen? They collided head on. Okay. Then the number of people dead or injured. So 10 people were injured while 2 died on the spot. So you just have to make short sentences. Children, remember, though it's a creative writing section, you need not use bombastic language. You don't have to use high flown vocabulary because the examiner may not be able to understand. Okay. It's very likely, and this has happened earlier. Very good students who had a very good vocabulary were not able to score well. Okay. So we tell children to stick to very simple language. Okay. So in the report, after you've written your headline and byline, you will write what, when, where, etc. How. After that, briefly describe the scene of the accident. Accident scene, we have all witnessed accidents, at least in movies, in on TV, etc. What happens during an accident? There's a crowd, there's a traffic jam. Okay, then there are people who are providing first aid and all to the victims, etc. Or they are being pulled out of the bus or the van or whatever, and people try to reassure them. Okay. Now, a very important point here is eyewitness account. There is someone, who has actually seen what exactly happened. So you don't write according to an eyewitness account. Generally, according to sources. This is written as according to sources. The van driver was driving at breakneck speed, which due to which he was not able to control his vehicle and it swerved. Okay. So there is someone or the other, who's going to witness. Or you can mention, according to a nearby tea stall vendor, the truck driver was speaking on his phone and did not see the vehicle coming opposite him. Okay. So this is called eyewitness account. So eyewitness account, just one sentence is required, either according to sources or according to a particular person. You can name the person, you can just generalize it. Okay. Then detailed account of the incident, including loss of life and property. Loss of life and property, if it is a fire accident and so many huts were gutted and all. Okay. Rescue operations, ambulance was called, people were rushed to the hospital. So these are the things that you will include in rescue operations. Further inquiry is going on. A case has been registered by the police. These are some of the sentences. They are very typical. If you read newspapers regularly, you will find these kinds of sentences over there. But if you memorize this checklist, then nothing can go wrong. Okay. Now this point number 11, relief operations, financial aid ordered by the government. This doesn't happen for road accidents and all. But if a train accident happens, then 10,000 is given to the kin of the injured, whereas around 50,000 to the kin of those who lost their lives. But this is optional. You may not mention, doesn't matter. Most of the things you will be mentioning again because content just carries 2 marks. So even if you mention what, when, where, how many were injured, the brief description of the scene, eyewitness account, rescue operations, even if you mention this much, you are sure to get 2 out of 2 for content. Format, if you've written the headline, byline, you will get, and the date and time because it's a newspaper report. Remember, accident reports will never be magazine reports. They will always be newspaper reports. And if you have organized your content properly, with what happened, when, where, how, scene of the accident, rescue operations, etc. If you follow this sequence, then for organization, you get 1. If you jumble up the events, then nobody can give you 0. You will get at least half a mark. And again, for your language errors, only half a mark will be deducted. Okay. So again, you end up getting 4 out of 5 here. So this is your creative writing section. Okay. Now, the major part of your paper, which is 50%, is literature. Okay. So these are the points for an event, name of the event, what was the occasion, say a tree plantation drive was organized, when, date, place, time, who was the chief guest, who inauguration, the chief guest inaugurated the event, then who all attended the event, the details of the event, then prize distribution, guest's address, vote of thanks, and audience response. So these are the points to be included for an event. Okay. So ensure that you mention all these things. Again, what, when, where in the first paragraph. Then inauguration words like inauguration, chief guest, prize distribution, address, vote of thanks. So the examiner will only look at these words in your report. And if you underline these words, then the examiner may not even read the entire report, and considering the highlighted value points, you may end up getting full 5 out of 5, even if you have committed a few spelling or grammatical errors, because there's pressure on the examiner also to correct a particular number of papers per day. So this is one, tip that I would provide. Go on underlining words like chief guest, inauguration, prize distribution. The chief guest appreciated the efforts. Vote of thanks was presented. The audience were very happy and found the event very enriching. So if you underline these keywords, these are all value based on the value points. I have prepared this checklist. Okay. Then same for workshops and seminars. Same, what was the workshop about, who were the resource persons, what activities were conducted, okay, who attended the workshop, then details of the workshop, what did they speak about, if it was communication skills, how to improve communication skills and all, then how they had some group activities, some presentations were made, there was a question and answer session, and it concluded on a good note. The children found the session very enriching. Okay. So just one sentence on these things and you are sure of your 5 marks. So now let us switch over to literature, which is 50% of the paper. Now many of you must not have read the chapters very thoroughly, not purposely, but there are science students who focus only on physics, chemistry, maths, and commerce students who have huge, a large chunk of portion for accounts, economics, and a huge chunk to be memorized for business studies, and they feel that ye ho jayega, dekh lenge, it's just a story. Okay, but children, remember that now our exam pattern has changed. It is no longer the same as it used to be earlier. Merely reading the story doesn't help anymore now. Okay, because questions are competency based questions where you have to know the text thoroughly from various perspectives. Okay. So even if you start reading one chapter every day, it's not too late. Please start reading chapters. Do not rely on the summary given in YouTube videos. I know your generation prefers listening and all instead of reading, but children, this is expected of you because this is your English paper. Okay, so do not rely on YouTube too much. Okay. So Flamingo and Vistas, you have 2 books. And if you can see, Flamingo carries 27 marks and Vistas 13 marks. The types of questions are multiple choice questions, objective type questions, short questions, 2-mark questions. Short questions are 2-mark questions. Long questions are 5-mark questions. Okay. And all these types of questions will assess your comprehension. That means how much you have understood. Interpretation, you will what you have interpreted or what you can interpret from a particular action of a particular character in the story. Then then analysis, it could be character analysis, okay. Then evaluation and extrapolation beyond the text. What is extrapolation and all, I'll explain with examples. So literature questions will be based on theme. So for every chapter, you should know the theme of the chapter. For last lesson, it's language chauvinism. Okay, then for Lost Spring, it is child labor. Deep Water, it is perseverance and determination, overcoming fear. Then Rat Trap, it is all about goodness and kindness, can awaken the best in people. So Indigo, again, fearlessness and standing up for your country, etc. Poets and pancakes, idiosyncrasies and all. So every chapter will have a theme. So what you need to do is when you read the chapter, you make a table like this. What is the theme of the chapter? Then who are the characters? You should know the characters very well. Do not mix up characters. Those who read, those who study English at the end will find Rajkumar Shukla as Ram Kumar Shukla, or they will find this character here mixing up Sahib and Mukesh story. I hope it's making sense to you when I'm, mentioning these characters. Okay. Then same with poets and pancakes and interviews. Don't end up mixing characters. You should be very thorough with everything. Then the writing style of the chapters, like Deep Water is an autobiographical piece of writing, whereas Poets and Pancakes is a satire. Okay. So what is the writing style? You need to observe whether it's a narrative, whether it's autobiographical, etc. Then what is the message? Every chapter, has a message and justification of the title, whether the title is appropriate or not. And of course, you need to know the outline story. So questions will be based on these things only, nothing beyond this will be asked. Theme, characters, writing style, message, title and outline, story. Okay. Now for poems, what could be? How do you prepare poems? Now, one thing about poems is when we read it once, we are able to understand something. But as we go on reading, we feel that there are many perceptions to it. So poetry is never written for something which it actually is. It is always beyond whatever is given. So read the poem very actively, understand the context. Now, understanding the context, what do I mean by this? If you are doing Aunt Jennifer's Tigers, then you should know something about the poet. Okay. Adrienne Rich. Adrienne Rich is a feminist poet, and therefore, if you know she's a feminist poet, you will be able to understand the content of the poem in a better manner. Okay. Analyze the structure. If it is a sonnet, there's no sonnet in class 12, but then analyze these are general guidelines. Analyze the structure of the poem. Note the use of rhyme scheme. We all have we have free verse only. We don't have any sonnets in class 12. But the structure of the poem My Mother at 66, it is just one sentence. The entire poem is just one sentence, and separated different phrases are used, and there are commas after every phrase, and there's a full stop only at the end of the poem. So this is what I mean when I'm telling you to analyze the structure. The other poems are free verse. Okay. Then note the use of rhyme scheme. There is what is the rhyme scheme of the poem, you should know. What is the theme of the poem? Is the poem conveying any particular message, like keeping quiet, importance of introspection? And literary devices are very, very important. You should know all basic literary devices, alliteration, personification, metaphor, simile, etc. Okay. Now, here are certain examples of questions based on theme. Now, these are all questions that I have picked up from previous year's exams. Comment on regret as a theme with any two examples from the story, The Last Lesson. In the examples, do you think the character's regret is justified? Explain in 120 and 50 words. So, every chapter, now though I told you that the last lesson is about language chauvinism, there are various sub-themes here. Procrastination is one sub-theme because they go on procrastinating, learning French, and they one fine day they realize that they won't be able to learn French at all. And then they all regret not learning their language. Then again here patriotism is also one of the sub-themes. So here you should be able to write here. The question is very specific. Comment on regret as a theme. So you will have to write who all regretted. M. Himmel regretted for giving too many holidays. Franz regrets not being sincere and wanting to bunk his classes, etc. And the villagers also, regret not learning the language properly. So you will have to elaborate these things. Okay. Then again, another question based on theme, the story Rat Trap shows loneliness of many characters and the human need to bond with others in the society. So here the theme is loneliness, but in this chapter there are three themes. One is loneliness, one is the metaphor of the rat trap, where we are all, attracted to various materialistic things and then we end up getting into trouble. Okay. And the third theme of this chapter is kindness can bring about kindness and understanding can bring about the latent goodness in people. How the peddler, is changed towards the end, how he transforms himself. So here a particular theme of loneliness is highlighted. So the peddler was lonely, the crofter was lonely, the ironmaster and his daughter were lonely. They also wanted some company for Christmas. So you will have to elaborate these things. Okay. Therefore, you should know the theme of the chapter. Then characters. You should know your characters very well, especially the protagonist. There may be various characters, but you should be very thorough with the protagonist of the story and one or two main characters. Okay. Now, this is again a board exam question. With reference to the text Indigo, describe any three attributes of Gandhi. Okay. So how Gandhiji believed in leading a simple life. Then he was a man of action, did not make hollow promises. He led by example. Then he was very resolute, dedicated, etc. Okay. Now, when you're writing these long answers, you will go on underlining all the adjectives. So simple, then dedicated, then resolute, okay, spirit of service, okay, fighting against injustice. So if you just highlight, if you underline, highlighting, I mean, sorry, highlighting is not allowed, but you can underline these important points with a pencil, okay. So again, when these questions are evaluated, they are evaluated on content and expression, okay. So content, if you have underlined, if you have been asked to write three attributes, always write one extra, okay? One or two extra points. If it's a 5-mark questions, please ensure that you have 5 value points mentioned, okay, to be on the safe side, so that there is no scope of losing marks at all. So go on underlining this, okay? Then here also, when you're writing lonely, peddler lonely, Edla lonely, ironmaster wanting company, the crofter was lonely. So go on underlining such things so that the examiner, is impressed. The examiner, it's brought to the examiner's notice very quickly that you've mentioned all the points, and the examiner does not have to read every word, and therefore your mistakes can be overlooked. So even if you've committed one or two spelling or grammatical errors, then they can be overlooked and you may end up getting 3, content 3 and expression 2. Okay. Then questions based on character analysis. Again, we'll continue. This is a short question. Based on your reading of Memories of Childhood, B2 Human Beings, mention one character trait that best describes Anand. So Anand was the elder brother of Bama. So he was a matured person. Okay. So how do you know he was mature? You have to justify. You just cannot answer a 2-mark question with one word or one sentence like this. So whenever you are, assigning a character trait, you have to justify it with an example from the text. Then questions based on justify the title. Now look at this. Justify the title of the story, Journey to the End of the Earth, as a metaphor for devastating climate change. Okay. So is the title appropriate? Of course, yes, because we are talking about the harm to the environment, to our planet. Okay. And the entire chapter talks about it, how we are harming our own planet and bringing about self-destruction. So you again have to, justify. Go on mentioning the points which are relevant to this. Now, here I remember something. Imagine you are not able to understand the question at all. Okay. Suppose you get a choice between these two questions. Do you think Memories of Childhood is an appropriate title and Journey to the End of the Earth as a metaphor for devastating climate change? and you find both of them difficult, you don't know, what will you do in such a situation? You will write the summary of the chapter. In the worst situation, children, please mark my words. This is not a strategy. This is disaster management. Okay. So this is disaster management that I'm telling you. If you don't know how to answer a particular question, then please mention in brief, write the summary of the chapter rather than not attempting the question at all. Because there will be one or two value points which will match. And if you write the summary of the chapter, the examiner again cannot give you 0 out of 5 for it. You will end up getting at least 2 to 3 marks for it. Okay. So do not leave anything unanswered. In such situations, write the summary of the chapter. Summary is summary. Do not write 2 or 3 pages. Okay. Mention only the important points of the chapter and leave it to the examiner. The examiner will try to understand or gauge, will try to relate the question to whatever you have written. So leave it to the examiner. Okay. Then do you think Memories of Childhood is an appropriate title? State yes or no. Now, whenever you get yes or no questions, it is your choice whether to stick to yes or no. But you should be able to justify it. Though the chapter talks about memory, yes, it's an appropriate title because they are talking about their childhood experiences and all. Look at the answer for no. No, this is not an appropriate title because memory is something, good. Memory is always good. This was more than a memory. This was a nightmare because how they were treated, they were traumatized for life, etc. Okay, because they had to face many problems like racial discrimination and all those things. So you should be able to justify whatever you are writing. Then there may be open-ended questions. If you're familiar with the chapter on the face of it, where Derry comes to the garden of Mr. Lamb, and he finds Mr. Lamb lying on the floor and he doesn't respond. So we have to presume that Mr. Lamb is dead. A couple of years ago, there was a question. How would you like to end this story? Okay. So if such questions are asked, then it depends on you what you write. So whatever was written by the children was, considered, and full marks were awarded for such questions. So opt for such questions, where there is no standard answer. So try, opting for such questions. But my suggestion is when you are answering 2-mark questions, answer all 6. Though you have to, though you are asked to answer any 5, answer all 6. You may have been told by different people that only the first 5 will be considered. There is nothing like this. The best is always considered. Okay. So wherever there is choice like this and there is enough time, attempt all. Okay. Of course, you cannot attempt both the long answers, but short answer questions, they are very brief, 40 words. So attempt all 6, the best 5 will be selected and marks will be given. So again, there you don't leave any scope for losing any marks. Okay. Now questions based on message. So as and when I remember things, I'm going on telling you instead of just sticking to the presentation. So again, look at this. In 40 to 50 words, analyze the author's message in the context given below. In the story, we too are human beings. We first read about the old man carrying the parcel through the eyes of Bama. And later, the full context of the event when Annan explains it to her. So what is the message being conveyed through this? That Bama laughed at the old man because she did not understand. She was an immature child. But Anand did not laugh at the same event because he knew that they were being discriminated on the basis of their caste. So what is the message being conveyed? That the perception of children is different from adults. Okay. Now look at an example of an extrapolatory question. Adi is constantly on his phone. What is extrapolation? Going beyond the text. Okay. Adi is constantly on his phone, updating his life on social media to increase the number of followers he has. What advice would Pablo Neruda give to Adi based on the poem Keeping Quiet? Children, please opt for such questions, okay? Because you know what has to be done. And again, What advice would Pablo Neruda give? You will first be shocked, kya likhu, what should I write in this? But then I have given you a checklist about uh, prose and poetry. Look at the message, look at the theme. Okay. So what message is being conveyed in the poem? The same message will be given by Pablo Neruda to Adi. Or the poem deals with the theme of introspection, the importance of introspection in our life, taking a minute off from our busy schedules and thinking about our own lives, taking a break and indulging in silent productivity. Okay. So these are the messages that these are the suggestions that Pablo Neruda will give to Adi. So do not panic when you see such questions. What you have to do is, I have told you to remember the theme, the message, etc. Apply that over here when you get such questions. Okay. I think it will be easy then if you follow this technique. So Neruda would advise Adi to take a break from social media. He would urge Adi to introspect. The word introspection should come in because that is the theme. Spend more time with himself rather than engaging with countless people through social media. Focus on what is important. Take a pause. Being still and keeping quiet. How can you introspect? When you are still and when you are quiet. Okay. Now, this is the latest thing which scares students. Combined questions by intermixing chapters. These are again, these questions are from the sample paper, latest sample paper 2025. Analyze the poems A Roadside Stand and Aunt Jennifer's Tigers for the theme of inequality and its impact on the bearers. Now you'll be scared. Oh God, what do I do? And uska choice ka question is also, how do the characters of Sophie from Going Places and Subu from Poets and Pancakes compare and contrast in terms of the aspirations, constraints, and the pursuit of their dreams? Now, if you have a choice between these two, what will you do? You will panic, but don't. I'll tell you how to make it very easy. You will calmly, first of all, choose. Choosing is very important. Choosing wisely. What are you more confident about? Poems or prose? So there, it's not necessary that you will get this combination, either poetry and prose. It could be anything. A poem can be mixed with a chapter. That is also possible. So first you have to decide how will you choose, how will you make a proper choice? You will see which chapter you're comfortable with and then go for it. Now, roadside stand, generally children are scared because it's a very long poem. Okay. But remember, Aunt Jennifer's is easy. Aunt Jennifer is all about, it's a feminist poem as we saw, and how she doesn't enjoy freedom. She's a victim of male chauvinism. She's a victim of oppression and all. Okay. And same thing, inequality. What is the theme of roadside stand? What is the theme of Aunt Jennifer's Tigers? If you're not able to find any similarities, what you will do is first write about roadside stand, then write about Aunt Jennifer's Tigers and leave it to the examiner. Now, because you have written about roadside stand, because you have written about Aunt Jennifer's Tigers, the examiner will have to give you marks. The examiner cannot write a comment there that the compare and comparison and contrast was not made. The examiner cannot do that. The examiner will have points there from the roadside stand and Aunt Jennifer's Tigers both. So the examiner has to give you marks. At the most, the examiner will deduct half a mark or 1 mark. And what were you going to do? You were going to leave that question because it was very difficult, you panicked, etc. Okay, generally, this is what children do. मैंने छोड़ दिया, I could not do it. I didn't understand anything. Okay. So it's very easy. Attempt roadside stand ka likho summary, Aunt Jennifer ka summary. It's over. Okay. It's very easy. Again, here characters of Sophie and Subu. If you are very thorough, you will be able to relate. Remember, whenever there is intermixing, the themes will be common or messages will be common or the character traits will be common. Two different things will never be asked because they are combining questions. So there has to be some commonality between the two. Remember this. So what is common? You just have to think. What is common here between Sophie and Subbu? Both, had great aspirations. Both were dreamers. Okay. So just highlight Sophie's character, Highlight Shubhu's character, that's all. There is no need of writing a compare and contrast answer. Sophie indulged in daydreaming and had great aspirations and dreamt of a sophisticated life, same as Subbu and all. There's no need to for intermixing also. So this is one strategy. Write about going places, write about poets and pancakes, and you're done with your answer. Okay. So don't be scared, do not panic. Okay. Now, the 3 hour challenge. How will you tackle those 3 hours? Because you will be judged on the basis of your 3 hour examination. Utilize the 15 minutes reading time only on reading question once. So this gives you a head start. Others will browse the paper, they will go through the entire paper and waste their 15 minutes. You don't have to do that. You will focus on question 1. So you start your paper 15 minutes before others start at 10:30. Okay. And complete section A by 11 a.m. So you get 45 minutes. Children, please note it down and stick to these timings because this has really helped my students. So when you read only question 1, which is a 12-mark passage, it's a longer passage. You have read it at least twice. You have read the questions and all. So as soon as your writing time starts, you start writing those answers. Okay. So you make a mental note of the questions during the reading time, you make a mental note of the answers. And as soon as writing time begins, you can start attempting question 1. And within 15 to 20 minutes, you are done with this. Section 2 is a case-based comprehension passage. So again, read the question, follow the same strategy, read the question, go to the passage, read the question, go to the passage. That will help you. Now, if you feel it's 11 o'clock and I have still not completed, you leave it. Please do not forsake one question for the other. Leave it at that. Leave some space. Take a new page. And my suggestion is attempt literature section next. Because this is the portion which is familiar to you. So something that you're familiar with, you will be able to do it better. Okay. You don't have to waste a lot of time in thinking. So attempt literature section. Literature section 11 to 12, 15, 1 hour, 15 minutes are enough if you have prepared thoroughly. Okay. Please stick to these timings. If you feel you have left out something, don't extend. Otherwise, you will again leave out the writing section, which is very, very scoring. Okay. And then 12:15 to 1:15 should be your creative writing time, where it will take 5 to 7 minutes for notice, 5 to 7 minutes for an invitation, and rest of the time can be divided between job application. If you have memorized job application, then it takes only 10 minutes to write an application and prepare the resume if you have memorized everything. And the report, if you follow the checklist, if you remember the checklist, just go on making sentences, what happened, when, where, how, and chief guest, it was inaugurated by so and so, the chief guest highlighted the importance of this, what were the activities undertaken and all, how did the program conclude? That's it. So it won't take long. And the last 15 minutes, underlining important points and checking. Underlining important points means if you're writing a report, then you will underline the words like chief guest, inauguration, when, where, how, a book fair was organized. So you will underline all these important points with a pencil. Again, in literature section, you will underline the long answers. You will underline value points of the long answers if you're describing character traits or some incidents or themes or whatever. So if you underline these important points with a pencil, then there are chances of losing very few marks for language and spelling errors. Okay, because your content is highlighted, the examiner gets an idea that you know everything and awards marks accordingly. Okay. And if you leave out something, then you have the scope of 15 minutes. Last 15 minutes, you can go back to comprehension and all and write. Again, my suggestion is whenever you are attempting multiple choice questions, write the answer also because, you know, we are stressed in those 3 hours. Sometimes what happens, A ka B, B ka D, we write. But if the answer is written correctly, then maybe that will be considered. It depends on the examiner, but then at least there are 50-50 chances of getting marks. But if you simply write the option, then if the option number is wrong and you've written it wrongly, then of course it is do or die. But if you write the answer along with it, then the examiner may feel that, oh, you have written it, it's a mistake by you and the answer is correct. So these are certain things which I wanted to tell you. Okay. Now the things that you need to remember, read the questions carefully. Now, why am I asking you to read questions carefully? Again, this is based on my experience of previous year's board exam. There was a question on creative writing, which began with nowadays students are stressed and all. They have so many things to do, etc. And therefore they face many mental health issues and all. And then it continued, write an article on the importance of yoga and meditation. Okay. Now, there were children who wrote about stress and mental health issues and all, and they did not read the last line of the question because they understood. They are in a hurry. They understood, okay, stress, strain, mental health, I know everything, and they wrote the entire thing and ended up getting zero here. Now, if the content is zero, then no marks are given on format, no marks on accuracy, etc., etc. So read the question very carefully from the beginning to the end. Try to gauge what has been actually asked. Okay. So this is how CBSE throws a googly, and sometimes children get trapped also. So remember this question of mine. It began with stress and strain and mental health and all, and it ended with write an article on the importance of yoga and meditation. Okay. Then choose the options wisely, be very wise, whichever chapter you're comfortable with, whichever topic you're comfortable with, choose those questions only. Remember the names of authors and poets. Draw a rough column for creative writing to jot down points. So when you are attempting an article or a report on the right hand side, it's not only maths that you need a rough column, you need a rough column for English also. You can note down the points so that you don't forget later. Okay. Avoid overwriting and all, avoid a lot of cancellation. Presentation should be neat. Draw a box for notice and invitations with a pencil. And last and the most important of all, answer all the questions. Do not decide whether it's right or wrong. Let the examiner decide. Leave it to the examiner. Attempt all questions. Okay. So these are some of the links that I have shared where you can find sample papers, previous year's papers, CBSE question bank, and competency focused practice questions. So all the best to you, and I'm sure you will do well. Thank you.
Wonderful session, ma'am. Very insightful. You have covered each and every point. Nothing is missed. Every corner of the board paper and the answer script you have covered, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
So I don't see any question. If students have questions, we will please start posting in the chat. Yeah, there's one hand raise.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Ma'am, actually the chat is disabled for us, so we are not able to post the doubts.
Oh, is it? Okay, okay. I'll just enable the chat. Yeah, chat is enabled now. Sorry, I didn't realize. We, student can raise their hand and they can also talk if they want. Since it's English, it might not be easy to write and explain.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, my doubt was in the literature section, there are two questions. One is the 2 markers, and next are the 5 markers.
Yes.
So, in 2 markers, the questions are quite comprehensive. Like they ask us to analyze a chapter in depth, but at the same time, there are 40 to 50 marks, 40 to 50 words answer. So, how do we comprise all of the chapter in 40 to 50 words with the key points?
No, no. See, there's one more thing. for a 2 mark question, you are expected to write in 40 to 50 words. Okay. So do not try to write a very long answer there. Generally, questions are very, very specific. So answer to the point. Be precise. Whatever is important, you mention that and underline it. Underline your important keywords. So that's enough. You don't have to write a full 1-page answer for a 2-mark question. And attempt all 6. 2-mark questions, all should be attempted, and from Vistas also, attempt all 3. So even if you miss out something when such questions are asked, so you have the other optional question which can be considered.
Okay, ma'am.
And even if you
Ma'am,
exceed the
yes,
word limit, marks are not deducted for exceeding the word limit. Every question will have a word limit given. So don't feel that I have completed my 150 words and therefore you may leave out certain points. Don't do that. Even if you write 200 words, no one can deduct your marks for exceeding the word limit. So mention all points. Don't bother about word limit and all. Okay.
yes, ma'am. Ma'am, another question. For the 6 markers, I have seen a few questions which have not been asked in the boards, but then they have been in the sample papers, like a diary entry or a letter to oneself. Like the characters are writing it to themselves. So in those type of question, what's the organization of the answers? Like, do we first give the intro for the chapter and then start with the diary entry, or what do we do?
No, directly come to the point. You may get a diary entry, say, rat trap, take the peddler's diary entry because he is transformed at the end. You may get a question as the peddler, write a diary entry after you have returned the stolen money, and also directly come to the point. Do not give any reference and or don't waste time there. Now, this is again an extrapolatory question. So whatever you write, but ensure that a diary entry, if it is asked as part of literature, then you will not lose marks for format of the diary entry, and only the content will be considered. So if it's a diary entry, your feelings and emotions, should be highlighted here, and feeling so relieved. It feels so nice to be a good man. I have always been a thief and always running from one place to the other, feeling insecure. And also, this is how you will continue. You will not write anything else. Got it?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, what about advices? Like one character is advising another character of the
So this
character.
advice will always be based on the theme or the message. Now, there was a question last year, I think. What advice does Gandhiji give to the bangle makers of Firozabad? So now your question, when you come across such a question, what should be your approach? You will think, what did Gandhiji do in the chapter Indigo? He told them not to be fearless. He told them to be united. He told them to be self-reliant. So the same things he is going to tell the bangle makers of Firozabad. Make a cooperative, don't be afraid, face your problems, be self-reliant, education, importance of education, because later on he opens schools and all we've seen in the chapter Indigo. Okay. So then he will tell them the same things. So that is why when you're tackling a chapter, tackle it from all these points of view, the theme, the characters, the character traits of the characters, the message that is being conveyed, and sometimes writing style also. Okay.
Ma'am, so these type of questions should be strictly chapter based. Like we don't have to include something extra, and it
Something
should.
extra if it is asked, you can always, because you know a lot about Gandhiji, so you can suggest non-violently, you can organize a satyagraha kind of a thing for your rights. Even if you write that, it is considered. That means you know a lot,
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
but not at the cost of, uh, deleting everything from the text. You have to mention the textual content. Now, sometimes there may be a question like, Gandhiji instills the importance of self-reliance in the chapter Indigo. Write an article on the importance of self-reliance with reference to the chapter Indigo. Now, in such a question, you are expected to write the importance of self-reliance. So, a paragraph on self-reliance, and then how Gandhi taught the importance of self-reliance to the peasants of Champaran. Okay.
Ma'am,
So
is this
these types of
applicable to
questions are also
speech?
seen.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, is this format for report applicable to speech also? Like speech on
Which format?
self-reliance by Gandhi ji?
There is no speech, child.
Oh, so only report, diary entry.
Article, no, no. What are you talking about? Are you talking long
Ma'am, I'm talking about the literature part. The
literature? Anything can be as it could be a diary, it could be a speech, it could be anything. So don't worry about the format over there. Directly come to the content. So you may be asked to deliver a speech on how to overcome fears with reference to deep water. So first you will write a paragraph on why we should overcome our fears and how can we overcome our fears and how did the character, that is Douglas, overcame his fears. So you have to write both the things. If you miss the textual part of it, you will get only 50% marks. Okay. So for such questions, be very mindful. Always mention the general paragraph and the specific paragraph. Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Anything else?
Ma'am, just one last doubt.
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, usually I face problem in RCs where some MCQs are not very direct. So in those cases, very many options seem similar. So in those RCs, it happens especially in the factual ones. So
Hmm.
how do I attempt those MCQs?
See, MCQs go by elimination. You will be left with two options which seem to be very close. Now you will have to go back to the extract and then relate it to the context and answer accordingly. There is no formula as such for this. The more thorough you are with the content, you will get these answers right.
Okay, ma'am. And ma'am, for the RC answers, the two markers, do we need to include 2 points or with data and like references, or our own understanding is also sufficient for answering these questions?
No, do not give any reference and all. Directly answer the questions.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
So if you're asked to elaborate on Keith's idea of beauty, so what was his idea of beauty? You can write four things within those 40-50 words. Answer all. That beautiful things give us everlasting joy, beautiful things rejuvenate us, they remove the pall from our dark spirits and all. Go on writing. There's no need for any reference anywhere.
Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manju ma'am, for such a insightful sessions and addressing the doubts.